Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I extend a very warm welcome to you on this insightful Fireside Chat, Intelligent Asset Management focusing on improving product quality and operational efficiency. This session is brought to you by Bhuan Cybertech in strategic partnership with IBM, two industry leaders in enterprise asset management for the energy and utilities industry. IBM Maximo, a market-leading enterprise asset management solution, is extremely rich in features and functionalities. And today's session will take a deep dive into the know-how of using IBM Maximo. For energy and utilities, Maximo integrates with existing data sources and operational processes to predict asset performance and risk for the delivery of safe and sustainable energy. It provides a reduction of up to 25% in time lost to equipment failure and a 10 to 15% reduction in inventory costs. Maximo manages assets through a single platform, ultimately maximizing asset lifecycle, minimizing risks, and delivering significant return on investment. Let us hear from our industry specialists in their fields of expertise, who will share real-time challenges about and their approach with practical implementations using IBM Maximo, especially in a critical climate like COVID-19. At this point, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the men of the hour. Your moderator, Mr. Terry Saunders, worldwide utilities industry leader from IBM USA. Terry is responsible for worldwide market share growth of asset and work management solutions in utilities, generation, transmission, and distribution for electric, gas, and water. He works with design architects, development, support, IBM customers, and business partners to manage the strategy of Maximo for utilities industry solutions. Terry began work with Maximo in 1997 and had previously worked in generation, substation, transmission, and distribution, as well as chemicals, petroleum, refining, mining, food processing, and manufacturing. He has held senior roles in product development, business development, and industry marketing for MRO software, PSDI, and IBM. Welcome on board, Terry.
Thank you.
Moving on to our key panel speakers, it is a pleasure to introduce industry professionals who have been long-standing customers of Bhuan Cybertech for over a decade in an ongoing digital transformation partnership, positively impacting enterprise asset management within their respective companies and the energy in the region. Our first panel speaker for today, Mr. Ajesh Idikula, head of the CMS functions for Aban Group India. Ajesh leads the applications and procurement section at Aban Offshore Limited, which includes all activities related to inventory, purchase, and maintenance, such as item coding, standardization, store setup, binning, logistics, and purchasing applications, as well as new project management development, planning, and scheduling. Welcome, Ajesh. Our second speaker for the session, Mr. Srinivasan Kumaraswamy, IT Manager for Tucker Power Company. Srini leads IT infrastructure and applications for the Tucker India entity of Abu Dhabi National Energy Company, with more than 17 years of experience. His association with Maximo links back to maintenance management, including full project management, procurement management for logistics and purchase-related applications such as PR, PO, and RFQs, and inventory management dealing with item codification, standardizing inventory, and so forth. Welcome, Srini. Our third and final panel speaker is Mr. Manoj Raj, Practice Lead Asset Management from Bhuan Cybertech. Manoj leads the asset management practice at Bhuan Cybertech and has a proven track record of delivering complex asset management solutions for oil and gas, manufacturing, and utility domains. Mr. Raj comes with a very rich background and was associated with the Mafatal, Asian Paints, and Reliance Industries Limited under various roles enhancing their maintenance and asset management practices. He has presented papers and studies in Maximo, RCM, IoT, and Tree Rigger for IBM and Accenture in various forums for asset and facility management practices. Welcome, Manoj. Gentlemen, it is our absolute pleasure to welcome all of you, and we thank you for your dedicated time as our speakers for this session. To begin this fireside chat, I would now like to hand over to your moderator, Mr. Saunders. Over to you, Terry.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm actually joining you today from Boston in the early hours here of a bright, sunny day. And I think I want to open by talking about some of the issues many of us in these challenging times and in our industries that are asset intensive. Number one is, and it is part of the history.
Sorry,
and,
Terry, if I may ask you just to hold. Ladies and gentlemen who are just joining, please may I ask you to keep yourselves on mute? Thank you. Terry, please go ahead.
Sure. I want to cover a little bit of the issues that most of us face in asset intensive industries, but number one is one of safety. And as is the culture in asset intensive industries and certainly in utilities, most sessions start with a safety briefing, and I'd like to do the same. During these times of COVID, many of us are working in situations that we don't normally perform in. Many of us are spending more time than we may like sitting at a desk. And so therefore, I suggest that you do get up and stand from time to time, drink plenty of water, and also embrace some of the background and challenges that we face in some of these sessions where people are working from different environments. It's just part of life, so we just embrace it. With that, I'd like to talk a little bit further about the issues. Most of us face issues of reliability. Some of us deal with regulatory reporting, need for improved customer engagement, the challenges of flattening demand and what that does for our business in terms of deciding out our budgets and most important work to perform, neutral targets of carbon, trying to address public image and the aging workforce, and of course, aging assets, and issues of spending justification. All these are important. And one of the things I've found over these past few months in our new situations that we operate in is Maximo has been very helpful to our customers to identify the important work, the critical work, and then how to perform that. And then even using HSE for permits and being able to make sure that the work is done safely. So with that sort of background of some of the challenges, maybe Ajish, I'd turn it over to you and ask, in your company and in your industry, what do you see are the key challenges that you're facing today?
One of the major key challenges today is minimize maintenance cost and maximize maintenance performance. So today, all of us are under margin pressure, and so all the managers come forward and say, cut down on your maintenance, but don't reduce the quality. So this is where Maximo plays a major role in helping us in optimizing our maintenance, reducing the inventory levels, and maximizing the performance.
Thank you very much. Maybe I could take that same question and turn that over to you, Sarini.
Yes, basically, there are a lot of space and improvement in the procurement functionality. So we have had many challenges, but we have overcome and we have made a good progress in procurement process in Maximo. So we also had some challenges in the HSE, and we are just in workout, and we have been incorporating in the system. So which the priorities will be for HSE, like in power plant. So we are just have some challenges in integrating. So we are working on to bring up the system in a good shape.
Okay, very, very interesting. And you bring up a very important point when you talk about inventory and procurement and supply chain. The MRO activities are very specific to needing to know what assets, what spare parts are available for each piece of equipment. And one of the things that we've done with Maximo over the years is significant investment working with our customers in all asset-intensive industries to extend and provide the right functionality for supply chain management for asset-intensive industries. And what we're seeing is many customers around the world are seeing that that's a key value, and they're using Maximo for their inventory and procurement, and then just integrating to their ERP systems, for purchasing and perhaps material masters. So that has actually streamlined and supported their operations more effectively. The other thing you mentioned was HSE. Very, very important. And it really ties in something that I see that sometimes is a missed opportunity. And that's really what I'll call enterprise operations management, making sure that operations is closely tied in with our maintenance activities and also engineering. And HSE provides operator logs, supports rounds and readings, permits, and it really helps tie the entire workforce together as one entity. Perhaps, Manoj, did you want to add any comments to that?
So see, the industry need to look beyond permits. Okay, so once we talk about safety or HSE, the basic idea that we have is how many permits we have in the system or in the landscape, and how effectively we are using permit for any critical safety critical work. Right? For example, confined space entry or height permits or welding, hot working, cold working. But Maximo as a system, I think, provides a great framework to think outside this permit. Permit, yes, it is included in the system, but think about operator logs, think about investigation, think about problem reporting, incident reporting. So with this, it provides a comprehensive package of entire HSSC requirements of an organization, which actually helps companies like Tata to identify their problems, their safety standards, and get aligned with the industry safety standard or maybe ISO specified safety standard, right? So that is where Maximo as a system and HSSC as a module in Maximo could help.
Very good, thank you. Now I'd like to turn our attentions to looking at inward into our own organizations and understanding the work culture and how we're progressing and working together in our own companies. And that's where we look at our own maturity, our asset management maturity as an organization. You know, I've been in this work for well over 35 years working in industry, and I've seen a major shift over the years. I mean, there was a lot of break fix activity early on, and then you see it moving more to being repair and reactive, and now to a situation of really repair, refurbish, and replace, and moving up the scale and trying to operate based on condition. So not just performing maintenance based on time and hours, but really getting information through monitoring and inspections and performing that maintenance on condition. The whole point there is if we can eliminate and extend some of these PM activities which don't provide real value, we can capture that time and apply it to the work that does provide value by working on condition. And that's kind of at the center, really, of reliability-centered maintenance. So, with that kind of backdrop, Ajish, how would you assess where you are within your organizations today?
Yeah, we implemented Maximo in our organization in 2000. So before that, we were using card system. Especially, we are using Maximo in our offshore. So we were using card system, and we shifted to we fully 2006. And at that time, we are only using calendar-based maintenance. Then slowly we moved to meter-based maintenance in 2011-12. And today we already started focusing on condition-based maintenance. Although the condition-based maintenance was not fully implemented because most of our vessels are offshore and we have serious communication issues, we started condition-based maintenance by inviting third personnel coming on board, IBM people coming on board, doing a cyclic condition meeting like a vibration checker, all this on individual equipment basis, and then feeding this data into Maximo and generating. So we have moved ahead very largely from time-based maintenance, calendar-based maintenance to condition-based maintenance.
Very good. Thank you for those insights. Perhaps, Sarini, could you give us a little more insights into your organization and how it's advanced and matured?
Okay. Actually, we had also a manual type of system where we had this work orders PTW tracked in the manual mode and outside the system, and we have been also using some legacy system. So it was very difficult and it was a bit challenging, and it is a time consuming, and even it was difficult for users to get approvals in the appropriate time. And so for last, once we introduced Maximo from 2014, we have also incorporated all the work order permits, PTW incorporated to Maximo, which saves a lot of time. And we also have an alert system in the Maximo where it alerts the users through the start center. So where they take a quick action and work is carried out in a timely manner. So So,
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Anything to add to that, Madhav?
So yeah, Terry, see, this talks about an evolution, right? So when, if you see 1 decade before, right, we always talk about critical assets and non-critical assets, correct? And in critical assets itself, we classify it as a complex asset or a non-complex asset. For a non-complex asset, you always believe that it is a bathtub model where its infant stage is there, where the mortality rate is high. Then it grows a stable period of equipment operation, and then when it ages, again the mortality is high at that time. Right? Mortality means failure rates. And now, and if you talk about complex asset, it is just the reverse, right? The instant mortality, infant mortality rate is high, and then it got stabilizes. So there, even maintenance managers in my earlier days in Asian Paints or Lens, we always used to say that never disturb an equipment when it is running smoothly. So when the initial hiccups is over and the equipment is running smoothly, we need to optimize our PM sequences and move out from this time-based sequence. So those parameters which needs to be defined, where the equipment health, the status of the equipment need to be monitored continuously. Correct? So that is where this condition monitoring comes into picture. Where actually you are planning your maintenance when you need to do maintenance. You are not unnecessarily doing a maintenance on a system and disturbing the life of the system. Rather than you wait for, you see whether the operation criteria are, how the equipment is operating, how the its functional criteria is met or not, and if the functions of an equipment get degraded, then the early warning signs can be detected from the condition monitoring, say meters or say any our meters or say the vibration meters or any technology like heat sensors. So with this, we can come up with a revised strategy of maintenance planning and do maintenance when actually it is required. That will actually help address Ajit's concern also to how to optimize cost. Right? We are not spending unnecessary until it is absolutely required to spend. So that is where Maximo as a system supports the reliability concepts, or maybe FEMA if you talk about. So that's where it supports it, right? So you do a maintenance when actually it is required to do.
Very good.
And
thank you.
Help you to do that. So that the decision making is a problem there, and the system like Maximo can help you to help you get that decision or take that decision in appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. Let me provide some further context about enterprise asset management that sometimes people don't quite realize. I mean, the whole effort at IBM has always been about the work and the assets. And sometimes different organizations don't realize the extreme capabilities that can be offered by integrating EAM to ERP systems. We learn a lot if we look at ISO 55000 for asset and work management, and I've seen that trend growing around the world, some seeking certification, but more importantly is the process, that it helps an organization understand its process of asset management, the discipline of asset management, and then risk management and the exposure to risk and the ability to mitigate that risk. And at first, people don't realize how complex asset management is. But when you sit back and think about it in even simple terms, and you start to expand that across your fleet of assets, you realize how complex it becomes. Because we have to understand, where are all of our assets? What about availability of assets, spare parts, tools, skills? Are the people and the skills and the resources where they need to be, where the work is? How does equipment fail? How does that impact the operations, and what's the risk of failure? And we have to have a discipline of work identification and asset inspection, understanding condition and health, and monitoring that. And one of the things that we're doing and have been doing at IBM is we've actually expanded to support the entire asset life cycle. So we realize that to do that, Maximo is in the bucket to manage the work and manage the assets. Now we've moved to providing monitoring capabilities, because some operations, there are so many alarms that operators sometimes, get overwhelmed with it, and some of them get, ignored. And so we use anomaly detection to really help identify those critical alerts and alarms that need to be reacted to. Then we've moved to systems to help you identify the health of your assets. You can see that across your fleet, and then start to predict, the potential degradation and failure. so that you can really manage a situation of repair, refurbish, and replace. Very, very important in this process. And as I talked about operations management and how important that is with your inspections and working as one team, perhaps we might have some ideas and some suggestions from our panelists. So Srini, can you talk about your organization as far as how you're working together as a team with operations, maintenance, and engineering?
Yes, in operation, this is briefly you are talking about. I couldn't get you on the.
Okay, so I'll take that. I'll take that. See, Terry, see here in the culture, we need to understand how this planned culture is, right? So always clear demarcation of technician in charge of maintenance and an operator in charge of production, right? So empowering an operator to do quick fixes, I would say, that's the basis of PPM, correct? And many companies here are trying to adopt that and empower their operators so that they can act as a first level of defense against a problem. Because I always believe that operators are very close to the equipment, right? So they are the person who will be feeling it. They'll be touching it day to day. So they are the person who will be understanding how if there is an abnormality coming in, an abnormal sound coming in. So that is where empowering an operator to be the first level of defense in a maintenance life cycle is very critical in when you see asset life cycle as a whole, right? So you can take quick actions and you can extend the life of an equipment, and the next maintenance can be planned accordingly, correct? So that's where you identify the early alerts, as you mentioned, and react upon it. Yeah?
Okay, thank you. So Srini, actually, there's another question I'd like to ask you in particular, and that's this issue of integration. I think one of the challenges people have when they consider, bringing a Maximo into their enterprise and with their ERP system, there's sometimes this concern of integration. And as we know, integration goes across the enterprise. You might be using GIS or spatial, and of course, you're going to be using one of the major providers for that to integrate to it. So when you looked at supply chain and using Maximo for inventory and purchasing, how was that as far as integration? How did that go for you? And how's it going today?
Yeah, actually, initially the integration was good, but still we had some few challenges on day-to-day activities. So it was a bit, it was not so smooth, but still there is some challenges which needs to be addressed, and it was working.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about integrating to other aspects of your operations?
Yeah, actually, to be frank, the integration was very smooth, and we have a small needs a small fine tunings. But we had a procurement model which is integrated to Oracle. So it was good actually. Still, our entities use this interface between Maximo and Oracle, and it is going good.
Okay, very good, very good. Ajish, actually, I know one of your passions is really about being able to understand the criticality of the assets and really looking at the predictive nature and moving your organization to more of a reliability-centered approach. Perhaps you could say more about that.
Like we have started all types of approach to control the cost. Like for example, for an engine, we already cut cost. So we extended the service of the engine by just introducing and external centrifuge and a filtration system, by which the 1,000-hour service has been extended to 2,000 hours. This is just a thought. So I would like to recommend that every person who is working on a plant or something, just think out of box and see how you can maintain cost. So we have just like the example I said, the maintenance cost has been cut very much. Similarly, the planning of what we did on the predictive maintenance, like investing on sensors to wired sensors. Today we have wireless sensors, everything coming here. So instead, if you do we have a problem with the budget, we can like how we did, we can start in small scale and show the return on investment to the management. Like see, invested X amount and we have 15 to 20% of maintenance costs has been reduced. So I believe all the management will come forward and help the company or help the maintenance team in increasing the maintenance budget and thereby saving a lot on the maintenance costs.
Thank you, Ajish. Let me add something too that probably has helped Ajish and others, and that is the HSE, the Health, Safety, Environment capabilities, actually were developed with IBM Maximo working with the oil and gas industry. Obviously, those are critical assets, and it's important that they understand the criticality. So this application then was expanded to other industries and named Health, Safety, Environment because they have some of the same challenges. One is assessing and identifying the criticality of the asset. So there's actually a matrix where the utilities and oil and gas companies and other asset-intensive industries can help define the criticality of these assets. And one of the things that Maximo does is color inheritance. So there's a technique called RAGs, simply red, amber, green. And it's your ability to be able to address and draw attention to the work with the workforce pretty much being consistent as one mind. Meaning we identify assets, they may be red, those that aren't as critical would go across a shading scale to yellow, and those of course that are fine and operating well are in green. So because work orders are normally written against assets, what will happen is that it will inherit that color that has been assigned by your reliability engineers and your teams through their assessment of the criticality. So when you're scheduling work, planning work, and reviewing the backlogs, those critical work orders tied to critical assets will really jump out at you and help really the workforce act consistently to address the more critical kinds of assets. Very, very important technique that Maximo can provide. And along with that is, I mentioned that how organizations are moving more and more to condition-based and moving away from calendar and usage-based, which is very, very, very important in all of their industries. You know, Ajish, how has that changed in your organization in terms of, you mentioned a little bit of that, but this movement away from, you know, calendar and time-based to condition? Do you want to say anything more about that?
So basically, we are working on the offshore vessels. So all the offshore vessels are miles, hundreds of miles away from the shore. So if you have any maintenance, just unscheduled maintenance, any equipment, then we have a long downtime. So this has a very bad impact on the on our earnings. So this is where we did a major analysis on the types of breakdown, and we found a pattern in it. So this is where we went to the market, we discussed with IBM, BC, Bhavan, everybody, and we found that okay, until we go ahead fully with the condition-based maintenance, why don't we start with a piece of why don't we start with the major critical equipments, work on them, do a TPM, like narrow down the failure notes and study on where the equipments fail, and then provide a feedback and improve your job plans. And this is where we started with, and we are now moved a lot. For us, the feedback from the past maintenance history helped us a lot. We did a major study, and that feedback, doing some work on the past history of the maintenance, study what are the logs entered by the maintenance crew, logs, helped us a lot in improving our maintenance.
Yeah, and you remind me of an important point, which I sometimes refer the operator's involvement as being your human sensors. We kind of forget about that, but they're that front line of some of those inspections that could be brought into understanding current condition of the assets. So Sarini, perhaps you could talk a little bit more about your journey to condition-based maintenance and current challenges that you're faced with in terms of trying to improve the way you operate toward more unconditioned.
Yeah, it's also purely on the, we have a system like a preventive maintenance, but still it depends on the working hours of the machinery assets. So we are also have optimized with the use of Maximo to bring down the maintenance cost through the system.
Okay, thank you. You know, I mentioned before that we've been working to expand our functions to support beyond the managed capabilities of Maximo. We've done quite a bit of investment into our mobility capability with Anywhere, and actually also bringing in AI and AR into the assist process. And that really affects the aging workforce. And that's what we're doing to try to help and support in the transitioning of a new and a younger workforce. There's two major things we've been doing. One is, of course, focusing on the usability of Maximo, making it more engaging. You know, younger people that are used to working with the internet and mobile devices, they want that seamless user experience, and we want that to be intuitive, that they can really just learn from that. So that's the efforts that we've made into there. And then in addition to that, we're bringing AI into the picture, where we can actually ingest details of maintenance manuals, equipment history, repair, even what we might understand on equipment performance across the internet. And we can start to even pose questions through cognitive solutions within Watson on to help direct and the worker in terms of performing the task. We're bringing AR into the picture, and I'm going to call it simply more like a FaceTime event, whereas you can identify the subject matter experts within your organization. A person from the field can be, looking and communicating with their mobile device and call up to see who's available to help them in the field perform the maintenance they need to perform. And the person in the office can see what the person in the field sees through the camera of their mobile device, and they can augment the actual images to help direct them on what direction and how far valves should be turned, how it should be adjusted, helping to provide confidence to the new worker in the field that they're performing the maintenance activity correctly, and then doing that actual repair and adjustment activity. So let's have a little bit of discussion about, I think many companies are exploring what might be available to them with new technologies of bringing in AI, AR, even use of drones, visual inspection, which we've added into Maximo to detect anomalies. And so, Srini, what has been the efforts that your company's been looking at in terms of some of these new emerging technologies?
Hello?
Yes, Srini, yes, your perspective on that.
The question, please.
Your perspective on what your company may be doing in terms of looking at some of these emerging technologies that could be available using AI, AR, any visual inspections, use of drones, these types of things.
Yes, actually, we are also looking at the new technologies where it has some effect on the getting things optimized and working on the cost benefit analysis. So we are also just looking after the bot. So
Terry, we are working closely with the TACA on this. Okay, so
yes.
See, if you talk about the drone-based inspections and all, right? So these power plants have a lot of hard-to-reach areas, we will say, where a person going there physically to understand the status of the equipment or line is a big problem. So they have been open to accepting these technologies of drone-based inspection and all, and especially another common problem with utilities industries is vegetation management, right? So
yes.
When our lines go kilometers and the vegetation grows over which has to be predicted and seen so that they can allocate their workforce to clean those areas. So these are the areas where I've been seeing a product in Maximo where it takes satellite images of these power lines and predict how much vegetation it has got. These are all nice things which is open to the customers to think out of the box. Why should I go to that places physically to see the growth of vegetation rather than assisting satellite images or assist from the drone technologies and take periodic image, do visualization, and then come up with a proper decision making, right? So we are working closely with the
Yeah, you bring up a very interesting point. So IBM, owns the weather company, and we brought that into the portfolio in supporting vegetation management. So you're describing the process, which we're now having utilities utilize, where in the weather company, through pairs and satellite imagery, we're able to look at the corridors and identify the canopy growth, the species of the trees, where they might be infringing into the power lines and structures, so that utilities can really prioritize their vegetation management activities and look at those that are most likely to encroach and present problems, certainly in storm conditions. So we're seeing a high interest and high success of utilities in particular now using and adopting our vegetation management capabilities, and then managing that work, of course, within Maximo. And through spatial, our GIS integration, you can actually visualize all of this across your operating territory, and you can essentially create polygons of the actual work within the corridor. Those are created into work orders, and then that work can be managed through Maximo as it progresses, and have good history of the investment and the work that was done. So that's another point of technology being applied, which has been quite successful. So, with that, Ajish, do you have any other comments about, exploring some different technologies or how it's helped your Maximo?
Like what you said, the AI and AR and drones, so if we can make it available in the offshore industry, it will be very helpful for us. Because we spend a lot of money by bringing third-party human specialized certified people to come to offshore vessel, because a lot of equipments are at very height levels. So all especially certified people are required for this purpose, and we spend a lot of money. So if this can be made available for us and in offshore as well as for the wind industry, so it will be very helpful for us, and maintenance can be done at very ease.
Yeah, and so actually I would direct our viewers to, there's actually a YouTube video of Woodside Energy. I think if you probably would look for that in your browser at some point, I think you'll find it quite interesting, where in that case, they talk about the use of cognitive and applying that to their asset and work management capabilities and helping the organization operate more efficiently and effectively. So that's really, really a very good technique. Go ahead.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, so that would be one thing to actually look at. And it's kind of amazing. One of the things that I find, and I encourage people to do, that when they have questions about asset management and related to Maximo, it's amazing that if you just go onto your browser, onto Google perhaps, and what you might find in terms of different customers, their testimonials, and what they can tell you about how they're managing maintenance with Maximo. It's really quite interesting, the stories and the things that they'll tell you about particular areas of problem solving. And with that, I'll bring in some of the simplicity of technology that can really help. We have a major water utility in Australia that was having problems with catch basins, and they'd have to send a crew out to go and check the condition and possibly clean. Whereas what they've done is they've installed cameras and connected those to their network, where on demand they can view the current condition of a catch basin at any one time, and thereby saving, having to dispatch crews that might not be necessary and dispatch them where they need to be. So they found that to be quite valuable, and in the end, providing good customer service, so they're not providing problems that can occur if there's clogging that occurs. Now we're seeing that even, this whole idea of inspections is so important, because you want to understand the current condition, and something as simple as cameras are being used in different situations at substations, so that on condition we can look at the current physical condition of some of those assets in operation. So that's really kind of exciting, I think, as we move forward into the future. So with this, in terms of giving us opportunity for any kind of closing remarks before we open it up to questions, in this session today, Sarini, are there any other, advice and comments you want to provide to our viewers in terms of their asset management?
No.
You said no other comments? Ajish, did you have any more advice?
I'm fine.
Do you have any more advice as closing comments before we open up to our questions from our viewers on asset management?
Terry, the concept is that we have to start thinking, moving from the ERP to a EAM base, right?
Yes.
Then we see EAM as an extension of ERP. Maybe ERP is more focused towards finance and how you're spending each penny of your organization, right? But
Right.
EAM is more concentration on how you're actually managing the asset and how effectively you can manage the asset. And that is where the technology brings in to assist the maintenance managers to take appropriate decisions, right? If you talk about asset planning or asset investment planning, when I should retire my asset, when I should be thinking about repairing my asset, and even a shutdown maintenance, right? People they have seen specialized technologies for maintaining or managing their turnaround maintenance across oil and gas and for utilities, right? So they are the Maximo solutions of Scheduler Plus is a tailor-made for this. You create work orders for shutdown, plan it throughout the year, move those work orders into a bucket, and then schedule it during the turnaround time and so that you don't miss any activity. So we are talking about a tool here which specializes on asset management and easily get integrated. That's where the point of Srini comes in, right? That the Maximo asset tool works hand in hand with Oracle or with SAP to modernize their asset management landscape. That is where a product like a Maximo adds value. And here it comes that the state-of-the-art technologies like AI, AR, or vegetation management, or asset performance management, which is a broader topic to touch about, right? So all these things come hand in hand and come tailor-made with a product, and which gets integrated to your existing landscape, and which improves how you see asset and how you can improve the life cycle, the productivity from your, because asset performance is directly linked with productivity. If you are increasing your uptime, you are increasing your productivity, right? So your equipment in a continuous plant is running 2 hours more, your productivity is increased by 2 hours. That is how I see it, that a specialized asset management solution has to work hand in hand with a ERP solution to maximize benefits. What is your view on that?
Yes, Manoj, thank you very much. You're absolutely right. And during these challenging times in particular, I think it's even more important that we're able to clearly see our assets and the condition of those assets. And what we're finding is companies more and more realize that they need to consolidate applications. And one of the advantages that Maximo provides in that, and we see this when our large enterprise customers, is the business value is consolidating all of these point applications that are developed. You know, what happens sometimes is that a regulation or a change in the business causes us to, develop a new, I call them pop-up application to be able to manage that. What they find with Maximo is actually also a development environment where you can actually create fields in applications where appropriate that might be addressing this regulatory or change in reporting that's needed. And you can actually clone applications, and you can actually not customize. I don't really ever encourage that, but you configure. So you can configure Maximo to meet your changing business needs. And this is something that the business itself can do. They don't need other people to do that for them. There's a user business interface there to help them support that. So what we find is that we're trying to really have one consistent set of applications across the enterprise to manage our assets. And Maximo helps to do that by consolidating all of these other applications, which provide 2 areas of value. One is visibility now across all of those that need this information. And the other is simplicity in terms of the applications. So this is an advantage that Maximo provides. And the integration is a very, very important part of that. One of the things that Maximo does is support integration that may seem simple, but it's very, very important. And that is the company can define really the field characteristics, even the link. So if you have to match an integration to your ERP system that's alphanumeric and 22 characters, that's a simple thing to do in Maximo. And when you think about that, that's pretty important to have a very effective, smooth, and running integration. And there's always going to be integration when you look at, across the enterprise with your SCADA systems, your GIS systems, your, enterprise asset management, some of your reporting. But Maximo, you can bring that up into one view. So again, we're trying to provide an enterprise view across understanding the health of our organization and a simplified view. One that people can pretty much understand just the way we do every day when we just work across the internet and go looking for information. So with that, perhaps we should move to taking questions from our viewers.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Terry. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now be moving into the open panel Q&A session. So I invite you to type your questions in the Zoom question box in your control panel below. And as the anchor, I will be redirecting those questions to Terry and obviously to our panel speakers. There are a few that have already come through, so I'm going to start with the ones I have so far. The first question is directed to Manoj. How can Maximo help in asset investment planning?
Okay, so that's a good topic to touch upon, right? So we spoke about the life cycle of an asset, right? Asset life cycle, we mentioned about the life of the asset starts with the baby steps. It consolidates, its operation streamlines, and then the aging factor comes in. So the maybe we maintain the asset gets increase, the life cycle of the asset gets increased. That is how the entire asset management works, right? So see here, the decision point is how can we think about when to replace this asset. So the replacement versus maintenance, managing the asset is a bigger cost, right? So that Maximo, because Maximo is a repository of data, you can get the entire maintenance history happened on that asset, how much money you have spent on that asset, and what benefit you will get if you replace the asset. So after say some years of operation, when you see that the production output of the asset is degrading, that is where a asset investment planning comes into picture. So you can plan for a replacement in the future, right? Maximo, with the APM suite, it provides a landscape for asset investment planning. It tracks the asset, it tracks the investment that you're doing on asset, it tracks the mean time between your repairs, the how much money you are spending on repairs, both in case of labor, in tools, the spares, and it helps the maintenance managers to effectively take a decision on whether I should replace this asset at a point or not. So that is where the solutions, analytical solutions clubbed in with Maximo could create reports to help the maintenance managers come up with wiser decisions and data supported decisions, right? Maximo provides a landscape of analytical tools. So Cognos reporting comes along with the suite, which provides us an analytical landscape to assess the across life cycle of the asset, how much money you are spending on the asset, and assist finance team or your maintenance team to take wise decisions on replacement.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mark. That was quite thorough. Thank you. Srini, there's a question that is being posed to you. How is the procurement life cycle being handled or implemented using Maximo?
Yes, actually the entire procurement process we have taken into Maximo, right from starting from the purchase request, RFQ, and validating sending the RFQ to the vendor, and making the technical evaluation and the DOA. Everything comes into the Maximo, and also the automatic generation of PO and sending to vendor. Everything, the entire complete purchase process is happening in the Maximo. Except the receipt receipt also happens in Maximo. Only thing is the invoicing will be in external system. So the entire purchase process is captured in Maximo.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Srini. There is a question here. I'm going to direct this question to Ajish. How is Maximo used in offshore oil and gas installations?
Okay, so in offshore oil and gas installations, we are the bandwidth is very expensive, and the thing is that the vessels are not stationary. So how we have implemented Maximo in our installations is we are using multiple server versions. That is, Maximo is on a server on the vessel, as well as we have centralized Maximo in base. So all the users in offshore who works on the Maximo on the vessel separately as a independent system, and those data are synced with the base server every 20 minutes. So for a base user, he doesn't know that it has an offline system which is integrated, which is working in the vessel. So this helps the offshore users to work seamlessly on Maximo, irrespective of whether they have internet or no internet, the vessel is moving, or there is a cyclone threat, or whatever it is, they are not concerned, then they can work seamlessly on the vessels. So this is a special tool developed by Bhavan Cybertech and provided to us.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. The one question that's come in here, I'm actually going to pass this on to Terry. Can you give more insight on Maximo and IBM Weather Engine? How does it add value in real time?
Okay, so that's a very good question. And what we're doing is optimizing satellite imagery, which is on a pretty frequent basis, depending on where this imagery is collected around the world, but it's collected around the globe quite regularly. Today, utilities in particular, they're not the only ones that deal with vegetation management. So do railways and so does oil and gas, but utilities in particular, it's an important part of their budget and management process. And today, sometimes it's used through LiDAR and through helicopter patrols, which can be quite expensive. And actually, it can't be done as frequently because of the cost and because of the effort involved. Whereas with pairs and the weather company satellite imagery, we're able to provide that in frequency up to really every other week. And so by having that kind of up-to-date information, we can make better decisions on where do we really need to spend our budget in terms of where it's going to have the biggest impact on actually trimming, removal, and treatment of some of the vegetation in the areas. And also we can understand the circuits in terms of where the feeders are and what customers are at the end of those circuits to know where the highest value will come in making sure we preserve the ability of those areas not to be impacted through vegetation.
Thank you, Terry. This question, I'm not sure if it should be posed to Manoj or Terry, so either one of you please give this a go. What happens to the existing or historical data which is there in SAP and SCADA, and how is it migrated to derive the meaningful results?
Okay, Terry, you want to take that, or should I go for it?
Go ahead, have a go.
Yeah, okay, so thank you. See, historical data, right? See, if you talk about historical data, there are two types of historical data, right? One, we call it as operational data, where the operation of your asset, like your power consumed, the RPMs of the equipment captured. So these data reside in historian or any OSI PI system, right? And the second data is more of a transactional data, we call it, and that is residing in SAP or Maximo or any other EAM solution, correct, which is in operation. So if you talk about decisions, right, decision has to be based on both these data. If you take decision based on only one data, your decisions will not be conclusive, because the operational data holds equally weightage as the transactional data. So the engines, there are so many engines available, even in Maximo, like Cognos engines, where you can integrate the data with historian and use the data or transactional data from SAP and come up with custom models for specific to a purpose. For example, we spoke about a performance, asset performance of an asset, right? So that model can be created, and that model can be correlated with respect to both these data, the operational data as well as transactional data. So the good thing is that you are giving it, you are creating, or you are making a decision based on both the transactional side of the data as well as the operational side of the data. And integrations with Maximo integration framework, you can have non-persistent integrations where you don't need to bring the data. The data will reside in the source systems, but you pull in the factual things related to that decision. Only those data will be pulled into the model, convert the model into the decision and then flush that data out. So the data, we don't need to pull entire data into Maximo. Data can reside in the source system. The applicable data can be pulled in and for the any decision making purpose. I think that answers.
Yeah, thank you.
Very thorough. Thank you.
This one I'm going to pose to you, Terry. And first of all, I must actually just thank the audience that we have. There are some fantastic questions coming through. To be honest with you, they're rolling in fast. So there may be some questions that we don't deal with in this particular session. I will give you an opportunity to redirect them to the panel of speakers via email, and then we can have a direct session with you and the particular speakers on those questions. So first and foremost, thank you though for sending these questions through. Terry, is there any provision on Maximo tool to operate high-value physical assets with visibility and control across the enterprise with predictive and prescriptive analysis on operational performance?
Yeah, so actually, I want to draw everyone's attention to the fact that within IBM, not only are we using Maximo as far as to manage, but what we've invested in terms of monitoring and asset performance management or health and predict is actually a set of tools, applications, and capabilities that can be used with any EAM system. So it's actually agnostic to that, but feeds back to the enterprise asset management system. Of course, the integration to Maximo is readily there, but the others can be provided for that. So it's really a matter of understanding the current health, and that has to do with monitoring and supporting inspections. We've invested quite a bit in terms of inspections capabilities, which are then integrated all the way back into the enterprise. With asset performance management, and particularly in T&D, we've developed models working with customers and industry standards that support specific asset classes. So your fleet of transformers, whether those be power transformers, distribution transformers, particular classes of circuit breakers, your battery banks, your load tap changers, all of that, we've defined those. But the important thing is that these models are open and extensible. So particular industries will adjust those based on the data that they have and the quality of that data and how frequently it's connected. So you really start with what you have, and then you grow to focus on the important information that will really help you understand how your assets are operating. So that allows the company to grow and extend that across their enterprise. And we involve our business partners in helping to define those models and our customers in defining those models. And in time, we get more and more precise with our predictive capabilities. There's one last point I want to add about asset investment planning, and that is the reason it's so important to understand your current health of your assets and your fleet is, particularly now, it helps to identify the anomalies or the outliers. You might find assets that you didn't consider in your investment plan, and others that you had in your investment plan, you might find, we could extend this, and we need to really focus on some of these other assets. So it really updates and adjusts your capital planning. And I think right now that's so important because we're challenged with our capital budgets with what's happening on where do we spend to get the largest results. So the more that we understand across the fleet of our assets, their current health and condition, we can make better decisions, not just on repair and refurbish, but on replace.
So thank you very much, Terry. A question here, which I am going to pose to Srini from your experience. Srini, generally in any power plant, HSE is critical. Is there any other system currently being used to track HSE related transactions, and how is this integrated with Maximo in your organization?
Yes, to be frank, and generally, currently we are not using HSE model in Maximo, where we found the necessity and the importance we need to track all this into the system. So we are now in the process of integrating HSE model in Maximo, and which we planned in next quarter to be go live. So we have come out from the legacy system. We have integrated with Maximo to have the good process.
Excellent. Thank you, Srini.
Lauren, to add on to that, right? So there are solutions like traction, which are specific for HSE management. Okay, but see, the problem is that HSE holds the detrimental connection with Maximo, with work management, not Maximo, work management. So if you see HSE in our organization, right, the most impacted people are the technicians or the maintenance workforce. So holding HSE hand in hand with work management is very important. So if you have a standalone HSE system and if it is not integrated with your work management, then it is not serving the purpose. So it has to get integrated with work management, and the work management decisions, allocation of work, planning of work, all these things has to happen in the channel of HSSE. And that is where any solution, you plug in any solution of HSSE with any EAM product, right? So that solution should be plugged in with work management. That is where it adds value.
Thank you very much, Manoj. This question is more of an industry specific question, and I'm going to pose it to Ajish. Ajish, what are the challenges currently faced in offshore installations asset maintenance?
Today, the most challenges which are facing in offshore is availability of talents, environmental concerns, improving the safety standards of people working in offshore. So all this indirectly comes again to the maintenance of the proper maintenance of assets, because if you have proper tools to maintain assets, then training of the people, proper talents can be like more training need not be given on shore. All the training can be provided on job. This is one of the most challenging things which you have.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Ajish. This question I'm going to pose to Manoj. I think this is a good one for you. Are there any drawbacks of condition-based maintenance, and how does Maximo help to take care of it?
Okay, so condition-based maintenance, right? So, okay, so we'll talk about one step back, right? What used to happen in say the last decade of maintenance. So we have technicians going into the floor, seeing equipments, taking readings, and then coming and entering these readings into the system, and the system helps them take a decision. And that is how this condition-based monitoring has started, right? So if you talk about vibration analysis, we fix the vibration analysis engine into a motor, we take horizontal readings, vertical readings, and enter into a system, and we benchmark the higher value, lower value, and based upon that, you take a decision, right? So when the focus turned back to condition-based monitoring, then there comes the need for continuous monitoring, right? So here the change is from once in a while visiting an equipment, taking a reading, to 24/7 monitoring equipment which is running and taking the reading for a early warning, detection of an early warning, correct? So that is where condition monitoring comes in. The biggest disadvantage, or maybe if you say advantage or disadvantage, is the bulk amount of data coming in from these condition-based equipments, these instruments. For example, if you say IoT instrument or a SCADA. So these data coming in from these equipments will be minute-to-minute data or hour-to-hour data. So there needs to be a screening process, or a screening mechanism in place, which actually takes this data and converts that into meaningful data. For example, if you have a spike once in 24 hours of operation, we can ignore that. But if you get a spike continuously for 3-4 times, that is a warning, early warning for you. So just implementing condition-based monitoring and say that I'm taking care will not help. You need to see how the data is freezed and which part considering for taking the decisions. So if you talk about IoT, right? IoT has gone deep inroads in this condition-based monitoring, where the sensors which get to the equipment to take, and from a cloud and database, you see the data, and only appropriate data gets inserted to a Maximo or an SAP system or any EAM system. And based on those saved data, you take a decision. So the biggest advantage of condition monitoring, if you say, is that you are actually continuously watching the equipment. The disadvantage is that it's a big data. So we need to see, and we need to see which data we are actually considering and which data we are neglecting.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to pose this next question to Terry. Terry, how does Maximo support transforming asset operations with digital twins? And how does it manage huge amounts of data, perform simulation models to reduce time to make capital replacement decisions?
So that brings up a very interesting offering now in our portfolio called Digital Twin Exchange. So you can find that information, of course, on IBM, but what we're doing is engaging with our customers, with our business partners, and with the manufacturers of the equipment so that we can share detailed information about repair manuals, latest bill of material for the equipment. Those can be offered on the exchange and purchased by our customers, and even the work of business partners that if they are helping their customers with a particular class of assets define a best practice maintenance plan, those can be actually shared. So we're providing an exchange where our customers, business partners, and the manufacturers can start exchanging this data to better use that in their decision-making of their assets going forward, and then perform their modeling from that.
Thanks, Terry. I'm going to pose this next question to you too, Terry. It's quite a long one, and I know that Venkat has been very patient. He was one of the first to pose this question. So I'm going to drop this in before we start closing off. SAP EAM with SAP HANA Leonard, big data platforms and predictive analytics are coming in a big way. What is the plan of Maximo in this, and what is the roadmap to address the following, specifically to energy and utilities, when we can see a Maximo built in predictive analytics other than add-on Watson or other COTS vendor?
Yeah, so of course, IBM, we work, with the tooling and with the data that you have and help you optimize that. But we've set up even data lakes for our customers to be able to handle the large amounts of data. And really, I think this was brought up by Manash earlier, that is really, making sure you're looking at the right data and collecting and procuring and optimizing that data, which actually can help inform your decisions. So that's a part of that process of really bringing that data together. And of course, AI depends on the data to really optimize your decision making. So, we actually lay this out specifically for utilities with a complete data model for utilities to be able to bring in all sources of that data. But then you're going to look at where do we need to procure other data? Where do we find this data in particular may not be helpful? So it provides a focus in understanding, what sources of data will actually inform decisions.
Excellent, thank you very much. This next question I'm going to pose to Manoj. Talking about maps and Maximo. Can I utilize maps functions in Maximo for tracking the location of assets, your workforce, etc.?
Yeah, so the distributed workforce, right? So that's a term which I will use. That if your workforce is distributed, you want to see where the person is and what is the next task I can assign to him based on his location. That's where maps comes into picture, right? So Maximo has a built-in solution with maps. You can integrate Google Maps easily with Maximo. It has a spatial solution where you can integrate with Esri or any other map tool with Maximo. But how you are utilizing it, correct? There are three cases where you can see how you utilize a map. One is to locate the asset and which place of the world this asset is located. That helps in utility industry or transmission industry in particular, where you can actually track, locate your asset, right, where exactly it is located. Second is based on your workforce tracking, which I mentioned earlier, that there are solutions like a Maximo Scheduler Plus, where you can plan your workflows or schedule your workflows based on where exactly he is located. So that's where Terry mentioned earlier about the mobility part, right? So from the mobile devices, you can fetch the location of that mobile and put it into a dispatcher who can see that where exactly that person is located, and an emergency were coming in, he can route to that person. So this happens in telecom industry, And even in utility industry where you are going to repair billing, means meters for billing or addressing a router in case of a telecom industry, right? So that's where a moving workforce or a distributed workforce comes into picture. So the bottom line is that maps functionality is fully utilized in Maximo, and Maximo has the capability of integrating maps into their day-to-day operations.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to pose one more question. My apologies to the rest of the audience. We will get these questions answered. I will share the email address with you where you can repose these questions to our speakers. Excuse me. This particular question, I'm going to open up to the floor so all panel members are able to answer this. How are periodic maintenance activities like greasing, visual inspections, etc., reduced using Maximo?
Well, I would say first off, you're taking an enterprise view. So when you're looking at the inspections that you're going to perform, you're really first off saying which ones actually provide value. So you might be adjusting some of the consolidating some activities into a route. You might be combining other ones to be more efficient. And mentioned earlier about spatial is this thing about proximity. So one of the things that viewing assets on a map and viewing the work on a map, we find is that from our users, it's really the most intuitive kind of interface to work from. And they can clearly see the proximity where there are opportunities to adjust the route, change the route, being able to work on other things that are nearby. So it's really one of understanding if I'm going to travel to a location, whether it's in a plant or across a service territory, of understanding how to do that more efficiently. And like I said, changing that through the routes by understanding proximity.
Excellent, thank you, Terry.
Laurel, I'll add a point to that. Okay.
Please.
This brings back to the earlier point we touched upon on the TPM, right? How you can empower the operators to do basic maintenance activities, correct? So these greasing work, cleaning work, and all these things can be done by the person who is very next to the equipment, correct? So that's where operator empowerment happens. And if you see visualization, right? So if you see a bearing, for example, so bearing has a set of rotations assigned to it. So it rotates around 1,25,000 rotations or so. So that's how the bearing spec comes in, right? So there will be applicable standards to the greasing. So you should not be over greasing it. So if you talk about that specific point of greasing, so when you are greasing and what you need to do can be all captured in the maintenance plans, so that you are not overdoing it and you are going as per the spec. Right, so you in a plan, there might be a scenario you might be overspending it. So that depends upon the aging workforce issue we touched upon earlier. Right, if the technician goes into the floor, he sees that last time when I came here I greased it, so he greases again. So these things can be all eliminated by following a standard structured maintenance plan, which any tool of EAM supports, and Maximo also supports that. So with the structured task-based maintenance and task-based maintenance plan, job plans. So all these minute activities can be tracked. When are we greasing it? What was the last time it was greased? And what was the performance of that equipment post those visual inspections? All these things can be minimized. And again, the visual inspection point touch back to the point Terry has spoken about of using a camera for visual inspection so that you can save on your workforce. Your workforce need not go there, especially on areas where there are confined space inside a tank or inside a reactor. So there are areas where you need to assist visual inspections for decision making, and the technology can support it now.
Excellent, thank you, Manoj. That was a very good answer. I would like to take this opportunity to invite all of our audience for any questions that have not been answered, or if you have a new question that you would like answered, I'd like to redirect those questions to our speakers via the following email. If you look in your chat box, you will find the email that I've just sent to everyone. It is info@bhagwancybertech.com. So please do pose your questions, or if you would like to set up a one-on-one discussion related very specifically to your business in the industry, Terry, or even if you would like us to connect with you for a demo, we'd be happy to do so. So please do connect with us on info@bahwancybertech.com. Before I hand over to Terry for some final words, I also just wanted to bring your attention to a link. Please do take, it only takes a few minutes just to share some of your feedback with regards to the session. And if you want a follow-up session, we are very happy to set up another fireside chat. I think this has been very beneficial, a lot of deep insight. And I think, Terry, at this point, would you like to say a couple of words before I close off?
Yes, thank you. And thank you to all our panelists. And on behalf of IBM, really appreciate you taking your time to invest your thoughts and your ideas and enter into this kind of discussion. I really want to close with a comment that all of us should work toward establishing a culture of reliability. We all understand that our jobs involve one of safety, and we all embrace that. But embracing a culture of reliability provides even more safety and provides the operating environment that I think we all desire and really strive to work within. So establishing one culture of reliability is everyone's job to be able to pay attention and help drive our industries forward. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our session. I would like to take this opportunity to extend our thanks and appreciation to our moderator, Mr. Terry Saunders, and our three key panel speakers for their time and valuable input on the subject. I would also like to thank all our participants for joining the Bahwan Cybertech and IBM sponsored Fireside Chat, Intelligent Asset Management, focusing on improving product quality and operational efficiency. We trust that this platform was very beneficial to you in providing insights, especially industry insights, ideas on real-time solution implementations with IBM Maximo, and value from a technology transformation or enablement perspective. As mentioned before, Bahwan Cybertech and IBM looks forward to sharing a number of very relevant and industry-changing topics with you in our upcoming webinar series throughout the year. Until then, wishing you all a wonderful day further. Stay safe and stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you.